Hey there, Beyond Words family. Before we dive into today's story, I've got a quick question for you. Where are you from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. It's always amazing to see how our stories connect people from all over the world. Now, let me take you to the bustling streets of New York City, a place where dreams are born and crushed every single day. Amidst the chaos of honking cabs, hurried footsteps, and towering skyscrapers, there was Lila Harper. She wasn't just another face in the crowd. She had a voice that could stop time itself, if only someone would listen. Lila was 24 years old, broke, and living paycheck to paycheck, or rather gig to gig. Her home was a tiny studio apartment on the edge of Brooklyn, and her office? The subway platforms of Manhattan. Every evening, she'd set up her worn-out guitar case, strumming chords that echoed through the tunnels like whispers of hope. Passers-by would toss coins into her case, not because they cared, but maybe out of guilt or habit. But Lila didn't play for the money. She played because music was the only thing keeping her going. Growing up in a small town in Ohio, she dreamed of becoming a singer-songwriter, someone whose songs would touch hearts worldwide. But life in NYC wasn't kind to dreamers like her. Her rent was overdue, her phone bill unpaid, and rejection emails from record labels filled her inbox daily. Some nights, she wondered if she should pack up and go back home. Yet, even on her darkest days, Lila believed in doing what was right. And little did she know, one rainy night, that belief would change everything. For her and for someone else. It was one of those cold, rainy nights in New York when the city felt more unforgiving than ever. Lila had just finished playing her last song for the evening, a haunting melody about second chances, and was packing up her guitar. The subway platform was nearly empty now, save for a few stragglers rushing to catch the last train home. As she stood up, something caught her eye down the dimly lit alley near the station exit. A group of 3 men surrounded someone pressed against the wall. Even from a distance, Lila could hear muffled shouts and the clinking sound of coins hitting the ground. Her heart raced. They were robbing him. For a moment, fear paralyzed her. She was alone, outnumbered, and unarmed. But then she saw the victim's face. He looked terrified, his suit soaked through, clutching a briefcase like it was his lifeline. Something inside Lila snapped. "No," she muttered under her breath. "Not tonight." Grabbing her guitar case, she marched toward them without thinking twice. The thugs didn't notice her at first. When they did, one of them sneered, "What do you want, girl?" Instead of answering, Lila swung her guitar case with surprising force, smacking it into the closest guy's shin. He yelped in pain, stumbling back. Another lunged at her, but she sidestepped quickly, using the slick pavement to her advantage. "Leave him alone," she shouted, her voice cutting through the rain-soaked air like a knife. The third man hesitated, glancing between Lila and his buddies. Then, realizing this random woman wasn't backing down, he cursed loudly and signaled for the others to retreat. In seconds, they disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind their shaken victim. Lila turned to the man, who slid down the wall, breathing heavily. His tailored suit was torn, his tie askew, but his eyes, sharp and piercing, locked onto hers with gratitude. "You saved me," he said, his voice hoarse. I couldn't just stand by," Lila replied, suddenly feeling self-conscious. Up close, she realized he wasn't just some ordinary businessman. There was an aura of power around him, even in his disheveled state. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad of cash. "Take this, please. You deserve it." But Lila shook her head firmly. "I didn't do it for money." The man studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "What's your name?" "Lila Harper," she said. "I'm Ethan Caldwell." Her eyes widened slightly. The name sounded familiar, though she couldn't place it. Before she could ask anything else, Ethan straightened up, gave her one final look of thanks, and walked away, disappearing into the night. The next morning, Lila woke up with a strange mix of emotions. Part of her felt proud for standing up to those thugs, but another part couldn't shake off the unease. Who was Ethan Caldwell? And why did his name feel like it should mean something? She shrugged it off as she got ready for another long day of busking. Life didn't give her time to dwell on mysteries. It demanded hustle. Meanwhile, across town in a sleek penthouse overlooking Central Park, Ethan sat at his desk, staring at a blank screen. His mind kept replaying the events of the previous night. He'd been careless, distracted by work emails while walking home. A rookie mistake. Those men could have taken more than his wallet. They could have ended him. But instead, he owed his life to a stranger, a young woman with nothing to gain and everything to lose by stepping in. Ethan wasn't used to feeling vulnerable. As one of the richest men in America, he lived behind layers of security, deals, and distance. People approached him for favors, investments, or connections, not because they cared. Yet here was Lila Harper, refusing even a token of gratitude. Her humility struck a chord deep within him. He opened his laptop and typed her name into a search engine. Nothing major came up, just a few social media posts tagged at subway stations and open mic nights. But then he found a video someone had uploaded months ago. Lila performing an original song on a street corner. Her voice was raw, soulful, and undeniably powerful. Stopped him cold. For the first time in years, Ethan felt inspired. Not by numbers or profits, but by humanity. This girl had risked her safety for a man she didn't know, asking for nothing in return. In that moment, he decided two things. First, he would repay her kindness, not with charity but with opportunity. Second, he wouldn't tell her what he was planning. That evening, as Lila played her guitar under the flickering lights of Times Square, she noticed a black car parked nearby. A man in a suit stepped out briefly, glanced her way, and then left without saying a word. She dismissed it as coincidence, unaware that her life was about to change forever. Days turned into weeks, and life for Lila went back to its usual grind. She played her guitar at subway stations, collected enough coins to cover groceries, and avoided thinking about the eviction notice taped to her apartment door. The landlord had given her until the end of the month, just 10 more days, to pay up or leave. Her dreams of making it big seemed further away than ever. Record labels ignored her emails, and even local gigs were drying up. One night, after a particularly disheartening performance where no one stopped to listen, she sat alone on the platform steps, cradling her guitar like an old friend. "Maybe I'm not cut out for this," she whispered to herself, tears threatening to spill. "Maybe I should just go home." But deep down, she knew quitting wasn't an option. Music was her lifeline, it was who she was. Still, doubt gnawed at her relentlessly. What if all her efforts amounted to nothing? Unbeknownst to Lila, Ethan Caldwell had been watching from afar. He'd sent his assistant to quietly gather information about her life without revealing his involvement. Every report painted the same picture. A struggling artist clinging to hope despite overwhelming odds. It only strengthened his resolve to help her, but he wanted to do it right. One afternoon, as Lila walked past a cafe near Union Square, she overheard snippets of conversation from inside. Someone mentioned a gala hosted by none other than Ethan Caldwell's company. A high-profile event attended by celebrities, investors, and industry leaders. For a fleeting moment, she imagined herself performing there, her voice echoing through crystal chandeliers and velvet curtains. Then reality hit her like a freight train. "No way," she muttered under her breath. "That world isn't meant for people like me." Little did she know, fate had other plans. That same evening, while setting up her spot at Grand Central Station, she noticed the same black car from before pulling up nearby. Her heart skipped a beat when Ethan himself stepped out, dressed casually yet exuding authority. "Lila Harper," he said, approaching her with a faint smile. "We meet again." She blinked, unsure whether to feel nervous or excited. "Mr. Caldwell, what are you doing here?" "I have a proposition for you," he replied simply. "Something that might change your life, if you're willing to take the chance." Lila stared at Ethan, her mind racing. A proposition? From him? She couldn't imagine what he could possibly want from someone like her. "What kind of proposition?" she asked cautiously, clutching her guitar case like a shield. Ethan gestured toward the bustling crowd around them. "Not here. Let's talk somewhere quieter." He led her to a nearby cafe, where they sat in a corner booth away from prying eyes. Lila felt out of place among the polished patrons, but Ethan seemed unfazed. "I've been following your story," he began, his tone calm yet direct. "You're talented, Lila. Your music has soul, something rare these days. But talent alone isn't enough to break through in this city." She nodded slowly, unsure where this was headed. "This weekend, I'm hosting a private gala," he continued. "It's an exclusive event with some of the most influential people in entertainment and business. I'd like you to perform there." Her jaw dropped. "Me? At your gala? With all those important people?" "Yes," Ethan said firmly. "I believe you have what it takes to impress them. And if everything goes well—" He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. "Let's just say doors will open for you that you never thought possible." "But why me?" she blurted out, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Why would you do this for someone you barely know?" Ethan leaned back, studying her intently. "Because kindness deserves recognition. You saved my life that night, Lila. Now, let me help you change yours." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. This was too good to be true, or so she thought. "There's no catch," Ethan assured her, reading her expression. "Just promise me one thing. Give it your all when you perform. Trust me, the rest will fall into place." After a moment of hesitation, Lila nodded. "Okay, I'll do it." For the first time in months, hope flickered inside her chest. A fragile flame, but bright enough to light her path forward. The night of the gala arrived, and Lila stood backstage at Ethan's luxurious penthouse venue, her heart pounding like a drum. The room buzzed with elegant chatter as guests mingled under sparkling chandeliers, sipping champagne and discussing deals worth millions. She felt completely out of place in her simple black dress, borrowed from a friend, while everyone else looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. "You've got this," Ethan said, appearing beside her with an encouraging smile. "Just be yourself. They need to hear your truth." She nodded nervously, clutching her guitar tighter. As the MC announced her name, the crowd turned toward the stage, their faces curious but skeptical. Taking a deep breath, Lila walked into the spotlight, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the mic stand. "Hi," she began softly, her voice barely audible over the murmurs. "My name is Lila Harper, and I'm a street musician from Brooklyn. Tonight, I want to share something personal. A song about hope, struggle, and finding light in the darkest moments." The room fell silent as she strummed the first chord. Her voice filled the space, raw and unfiltered, weaving a story that transcended wealth and status. It was a song she'd written during her lowest point, a haunting melody about chasing dreams despite endless rejections. As she sang, something incredible happened. The skepticism melted away, replaced by rapt attention. Eyes glistened, heads nodded, and even the stiffest executives leaned forward, captivated. By the final note, the room erupted into applause so thunderous it brought tears to her eyes. When she finished, Ethan appeared on stage, clapping louder than anyone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, raising his glass, "let's give it up for Lila Harper." Afterward, people swarmed her, congratulating her and asking questions about her music. But the real turning point came when a tall man in a tailored suit approached her. "I'm Richard Lane," he introduced himself, handing her a business card. "I run Harmony Records. That performance was extraordinary. We'd love to sign you." Lila froze, staring at the card in disbelief. "A record deal? This couldn't be real." "It's not every day we find someone with such authenticity," Richard added. "Let's talk details soon." Overwhelmed, she turned to Ethan, who stood nearby, watching with quiet pride. "You did it," he said simply. "This is just the beginning." Later that night, after the gala had wound down and the guests had left, Lila found herself sitting alone with Ethan on the rooftop terrace of his penthouse. The city lights stretched endlessly before them, a sea of twinkling stars against the dark sky. "I still can't believe this happened," Lila said, breaking the comfortable silence between them. 1 minute, I'm playing for spare change in the subway, and the next, I have a record deal. Ethan smiled faintly, sipping his coffee. You earned it, Lila. That performance tonight wasn't just skill. It was heart. People don't forget art like that. She looked at him, her gratitude spilling over. But none of this would have happened without you. Why did you do it? Really? He set his cup down and met her gaze. Because kindness matters. You saved my life that night, not because you expected anything in return, but because it was the right thing to do. In a world where so many people are only out for themselves, what you did reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that humanity is worth fighting for. Tears welled up in her eyes again, but this time they were tears of understanding. I didn't think anyone noticed stuff like that anymore. Oh, they notice, Ethan replied. They just choose to ignore it most of the time. But when someone does stand up for what's right, it leaves a mark. You left a mark on me, Lila. And now, I hope tonight leaves one on you too. She nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. A mix of pride, relief, and renewed purpose. For years, she'd felt invisible, like her efforts didn't matter. But now, she realized that every small act of courage added up, even if the rewards weren't immediate. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. For everything. No, Ethan said gently. Thank you. You reminded me why I started all this in the first place, to make a difference. Now go out there and show the world your light. And there you have it, a story about kindness, courage, and the ripple effects of doing what's right. Lila Harper didn't save Ethan Caldwell expecting anything in return. She acted out of instinct, driven by her belief that no one should face injustice alone. But life has a way of rewarding those who choose to do good, even when it feels like the world isn't paying attention. This story isn't just about Lila or Ethan. It's about you. Have you ever done something kind, thinking it wouldn't matter, only to find out later how much it meant to someone? Or maybe you've been on the receiving end of an unexpected act of generosity. Drop your stories in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Kindness doesn't always come with instant rewards, but trust me, it adds up. Every time we stand up for what's right, help someone in need, or simply show compassion, we create ripples that can change lives, including our own. If the story resonated with you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs a reminder that their actions matter. And don't forget to subscribe to Beyond Words for more inspiring tales like this one. Together, let's keep spreading hope, one story at a time. Until next time, remember, you never know how far a single act of kindness can go. So keep shining, keep fighting, and most importantly, keep being the amazing person you are. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.